Good afternoon, everyone, and I'll turn the microphone on. It works a little better. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to City Council Chambers. We will start our meeting in a few minutes, but I think the mayor has an award he'd like to present. Would you mind, Mr. Mayor, if you did the award for excellence before we start our meeting?
Be very glad to. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, the continuing opportunity to do this. This is the Mayor's Award of Excellence for September. As you are very much aware, we try to honor different members of our workforce every month for the really great things that they do. And in this case, this month, the award's being presented to Office Specialist Brianne Crooks, who is with our purchasing division in the finance office. She's been there since 2016. She was nominated in the category of loss prevention by Assistant Purchasing Agent Lori Irons for helping to establish the insurance requirements, updated insurance requirements, for those who contract with the city and the county. In late 2016, in the midst of awarding more than about 100 unit price contracts, it was determined that additional insurance requirements were needed. Brianne immediately took a leadership role in learning what was needed and giving guidance to the division. She reached out to industry experts to learn about the endorsements that the city and the county could require and would require, and she worked with those experts as well as departments and suppliers to clarify the various needs that had to be covered. Brianne played a key role in helping to effectively and efficiently execute that group of specific unit price contracts with the new requirements. Then she went on and was asked to join an internal committee to help draft the new general insurance clauses to be used by the city in city and county contracts in the future. She helped write and review the clause and participated in several discussion sessions prior to it being implemented. And since then, Brianne has continued to learn about the potential risks involved with contracts. She's become the go-to person in the office to determine insurance risk and the coverage needed on contracts to insure against potential loss. She is able to quickly review documents to identify if they have the required coverages and to offer help when different documents and different clauses are needed. Brianne has also taken a class to expand her knowledge of insurance. She continues to research the subject, to stay familiar with forms and coverage requirements to help protect the city and the county. Lori writes her work in this area is a great asset to the departments, to the suppliers, and purchasing generally, and assessing insurance needs and ensuring that the city has the proper documents in place to protect against liability claims. The benefit, she said, is immeasurable. So it's my great pleasure to present Brianne. Come on up here, Brianne, with the Mayor's Award of Excellence for September. Please join me in congratulating her for her hard work and her commitment to the city of Lincoln.
Yay, Brianne.
I think the boss had a few words.
Just congratulate Bree on this award. She's worked really hard. She was a senior office assistant when she started all of this work and was recently promoted to office specialist. So she's done a lot for our office, for both the city and the county, and that's the other part of this is we deal with attorneys on both sides in terms that deal with each individual entity, and it's not really exciting work, and her taking that on has been great for us because there are so many different intricacies of the insurance industry that she has learned well. So she's doing a great job, and the rest of our staff continues to do the best they can with the insurance situations that we come up with, and we can turn to Bree each time we have questions.
Unfortunately, he has more than one boss, and he would like to speak.
Uh-oh. Is he gonna say it's exciting work?
So this is my third time being up here in the year and a half I've been here. So I figured out that my
Hat
staff.
trick.
What's that?
Hat trick.
Yeah. So my staff are really good at filling out applications, or they're just really good at the work they do. So I think it's the latter because I've got a really great staff that I work with. So this division now has had almost half of their staff recognized with this award. I really appreciate all the hard work they do and the work that they do to improve the procurement processes, not only for the city, but the county, the JPA, and the PBC. So they have a lot of customers that they work with. Changing these insurance standards in the middle of the unit price contract was also something that I'd say this is an understatement, was really challenging in the way how they did that in purchasing business. So that was a huge change in the middle of a fairly stressful time. Bob used to have brown hair before that, but now it's gray. So, but Bree really, I think, exhibited during that process initiative, hard work, and intentness to attain all those endorsements so they can get those contracts before the council. In doing that, gain more of a knowledge of the insurance business, and I just really appreciate the poise and team effort that she showed during that. So it's great to see staff like her recognized, especially in an internal service department. We always operate behind the scenes for the most part and try to help other departments operate on a daily basis that are more visible to the public. So, you know, we have a huge responsibility as stewards of taxpayer dollars, and it's great to have staff like her on hand that do that on a daily basis, in and out, to make sure we're doing the best we can. So, thank you.
Let's hear from Bree.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, she definitely has to come up now.
That's my mom.
Hi, Mom.
I just wanted to say thank you for this award, and to my great coworkers, as well as Lori, for nominating me. And while Bob may think it's boring, I actually kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you very much. We'll now start our regular meeting of the Lincoln City Council. Let's all rise for a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Silent meditation. Say, welcome to this monthly meeting, the weekly meeting of the Lincoln City Council. This is the second meeting of the month of October. The order of the business is in accordance with LB 898. Let me get it all together here. In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chambers. The order of the business of the Lincoln City Council is as follows. The clerk will call items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk has read that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, those in opposition, then those in opposition. The applicant may make a short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, and whether you're speaking in favor of or opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the City Council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please call our first item of business?
We do ask those of the general public coming forward to testify to please clearly state your name, spell your name, give your address, and sign in on the sign-in sheet laying on the podium. Testifiers may use either microphone. There is a sign-up sheet at each microphone. We ask those individuals from city staff who are testifying to please state your name, title, and the department you work for. Our first item of business is our public hearing consent agenda items 1 through 3. Is Ms. Moore here?
Yeah,
Come
thank you.
forward, please. Just
Good
state your name
afternoon.
and address.
Kim Moore, 9035 South 65th, Lincoln.
Ms. Moore, thank you for coming forward. You're being appointed to the Health Endowment Board. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am the retired president of CHI Health St. Elizabeth. I retired a year ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you, it's wonderful. And as the member of the president of St. Elizabeth, I served on the CHE board from 2011 until I retired in 2017. Most recently, I was on the funding committee for Community Health Endowment, but I've also been on finance and administration committee.
Thank you. Questions from the council for this appointee? This is a public hearing. Anyone else like to speak on any other, this item or any other consent agenda items? Seeing no one coming forward?
All right, if not, we can vote on these items. Items 1A through J were introduced by Camp.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion by Camp and a second by Raybold. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any discussion of the motion?
Just wanted to say thank you for your service and willingness to volunteer.
I'm sorry, I excused you too first. Too soon, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for your volunteer service.
Any other discussion about the consent agenda? Motion by Camp, second by Raybold. Would you call the roll, please?
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Then items 1K through N were introduced by Christensen.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion by Christensen, second by Eskridge. Discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next then are public hearing liquor resolutions. Item 4A is application of Copal Progressive Mexican Cuisine to expand its Class I liquor license for an additional indoor area measuring approximately 19 feet by 23 feet at 4747 Pioneers Boulevard.
Is there someone, would someone like to speak to this agenda item? Is there a representative from Capal? Anyone? Okay. Teresa, let's go to our next item.
All right, next is the manager application of Cody Schmick for Schmick's Market at 2727 North 11th Street and 1340 West O Street. Hi, Cody. Do you raise your right hand?
Yep.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Cody Schmick. That's CODYSCHMICK. My address is 8720 Fremont Street here in Lincoln, 68507. I am here to just change over the manager license from previous manager to myself on both of our grocery stores here in town.
All right, thank you. Questions from the council? Would anyone else in the audience like to testify on this agenda item? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack and read 4A again.
Sure. This is the application of Copal Progressive Mexican Cuisine.
I'm sorry, I thought the young man who came in, I was hoping he was with Capal, but
Okay.
never
Shall we
mind.
go- Okay, we'll go on to 4C. Application of Kincaidor Brewing Company for a special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 250 feet by 60 feet at Lincoln Station at 201 North 7th Street on October 27th from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Hey, I recognize
again.
you. Yes, hi.
You guys want me to spell my name again?
No, that's okay.
We just wanted to add one more game day on October 27th. We've been doing some tailgates going outside. They've been doing really well down in the Haymarket, and no issues so far, so I'll take any questions if you have them.
Questions? Councilman Eskridge.
Yeah, I was curious about how they're going, and
Yeah.
what's your capacity people-wise when you have a?
You know,
Good
I mean, we have that, we're kind of doing that whole area that's to the east of the train and then kind of right next to the park there. I guess I don't really have a number for you. We run a few hundred people through there every game day. I would say 1,500, maybe 2,000 people, but it's obviously from 8 a.m. in the morning until the evening, so.
And you're under the radar a little bit from some other neighbors that have gotten more press than you have.
Yeah.
What kind of security do you provide?
Sure,
for-
yeah, that's a great question. So I brought a guy that's been doing private security for about 20 years out of York, Nebraska. Most of the folks that are doing security are already hired in Lincoln that day, so we brought him up. I got some history with him, and he's takes it very seriously. He's got a team of 3 usually that we have, guys on each doors, and then guys roaming. We have yet to have any incidents. We have had to cut a few people off as they're walking in the doors and kind of some of those normal things. But I would invite any of the officers on duty that day to come. I'd love to have him meet Kip and just show that he's very professional about what he's doing, and he's great at it. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
I noticed there's a fenced-in patio, permanent patio.
Yes.
And that's part of your area?
Yeah, so that's our everyday patio, and that's licensed under our main liquor license. We basically just expand that out.
The edge of the concrete?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
Other questions from the council? Would anyone else in the audience like to speak on this agenda item? Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Teresa, can we go to, I guess we're going to 4D now?
4D? Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Application of Thirsty Sports Bar for special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 85 feet by 115 feet at 317 South 11th Street on November 3rd from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Is there someone in the audience to speak on this agenda item? Would anyone like to comment on this agenda item? All right, so we'll go to 4E then.
Application of Talon Room for a special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 105 feet by 90 feet at Swanson Russell at 1202 P Street on November 1st from 2 to 9 p.m.
My name is Matthew Rogge, Matthewrogge. I'm at 2100 Northwest 57th Street. I am the owner of the Talon Room, and we are hosting a public event for Swanson Russell. They're doing a little bit of a social gathering to commemorate some of their employees and some of their sponsors for their business. So it's going to be a tailgate item. They have an enclosed parking lot beneath their building. It's a fairly new area. We are actually right next door to Swanson Russell. So we're really just getting it just in case weather is nice. The way it's been lately, we probably will just do it at the Talon Room. So any questions?
Questions from the council? No? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll move approval of item 4B, C, and E.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Christensen and a second by Councilwoman Gaylord Baird to approve items B, C, and E.
I believe on item 4D, we have to approve it today or they cannot give a license. State's 10-day requirement.
I will.
So if we can clarify, so for A and for D, we did not have anyone come forward on, is that right?
Correct.
Correct.
Should we have someone from staff speak on those items?
Oh, well, I don't think it's appropriate on 4A.
So you've said
4A, we can continue, but 4D, I think we have to approve today or they will not have enough time to get the approval into the state. Because we don't have a meeting.
Officer Bryan, could you shine any light on this agenda item?
I put the deadline on their recommendation sheet, but I can't remember what it is.
Teresa, did they give you any indication that they would not be here today?
No.
Investigator Brian Hofer with the Lincoln Police Department.
Thank you for coming.
I did not speak to them either. I assumed that Teresa had been in touch with them to let them know they needed to be here today. They would have to be approved by October 22nd. And is there a meeting next week?
Yes.
We do meet next week, so we could carry it over.
It would have to be uploaded by the end of that day. So I believe that if they show up next week, they would just make it by the day that it needs to be.
Councilwoman Gaylord Baird?
On this particular item, it looks like they're closing down the block.
They're going to close down the street. Half of the street will be for group races on the group therapy bikes. The other half will be open beer garden type area with a fencing around it. The alcohol won't be where the racing is, but it'll be adjacent to it. This is a first-time event for them, so I would like to see them come before the council.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That was helpful. Other questions from the council? Anyone else? Well, we were ready to do that part.
Ready to vote.
We're ready to vote. So,
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did. Gaylord Baird.
Thank you. Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Shob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
I'm sorry, Councilman Camp
He's
is not
in
here.
the chambers right now, so you can't count 7. He's not here. That's just
Okay.
our chair being fun.
Attempting to be funny.
Who answered for him?
I tried.
Don't do that. Okay. So 4A and D will carry over to next week.
Yes, please.
Who would like to move that?
I move that 4A and D be carried over till our next meeting.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Christensen, second by Councilwoman Gaylord Baird. Discussion? And I will only vote once this time.
Which ones?
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Shob?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. All right.
So we
Next.
move to public hearing resolutions now.
Yes. Item 5A, Special Permit 18032, application of Random Business Adventures to develop a community unit plan to include 6 single-family dwelling units with requested waivers on property generally located at 5405 Roos Street.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I'm Mark Hunziker. Excuse me, I'm appearing on behalf of the developer today, and I'm going to try to set the stage in terms of the comprehensive plan and what it calls for in these kinds of circumstances. And I'll be followed up with Russ Meyer and Nate Burnett, who will address a little more of the particulars of the plan. As you know, our comp plan is based on certain assumptions about growth and how it's going to occur. And our current plan assumes that by 2040, Lancaster County is going to grow by 106,000 people. 90% of those are projected to be inside the city limits of Lincoln, or 95,400 people. And the balance will be distributed on acreages and in other cities and villages in the county. But the bottom line is we need about 40,000 dwelling units between now and 2040 to meet the needs in the city of Lincoln. And in the future growth areas that are shown in the comprehensive plan, we're showing an average of 3 dwelling units per acre in that area, which amounts to about 16.5 sections of land that will be developed over that period of time. Just for reference, that's roughly, if you go from 13th and O Street to 70th and Old Cheney Road, that's the kind of area we're talking about adding to the city limits of Lincoln. But about 20% of those 40,000 units we expect to be developed within the current city limits. And half of those will be in mixed use developments all over the city. And about 3,000 of them will be downtown or Antelope Valley. But there'll be 1,000 or so that we're projecting will occur in existing neighborhoods. Now, this site is made for one of those kinds of projects. Our planning department, I think, did a good job in its report of summarizing how the comprehensive plan bears on this project. And they pointed out that the urban density residential designation is placed on this project, and urban density residential is a range of density from about 1 unit per acre to over 15. And the encouragement is for a wide variety of housing types to be available for all people in this city. We encourage flexibility in siting residential development for that purpose, and we strive to have predictability for developers and neighbors. We encourage preservation of existing resources, which we've done with this project at the edge where we interface with the park and the outlet to Holmes Lake. And to encourage new development is a very specific encouragement of more than 5 dwelling units per gross acre. We barely get to that threshold. We get to 6 with this project. But the bottom line is this project checks all the boxes of your comprehensive plan that are envisioned for the future of this city. Both the Planning Department and the Planning Commission have recommended approval. And it does represent a certain amount of change for this neighborhood, which has raised a couple of concerns. However, if your comprehensive plan is to have meaning and any sort of guidance for the future, this project deserves your approval. If you fail to encourage and to approve projects which meet the criteria of your comprehensive plan, you're doing no one any favors. And this is one which I think meets that criteria and deserves your approval, and I'll try to answer questions, and I'll be back for rebuttal if necessary.
Questions now? Thank you very much. Would others like to speak to this agenda item?
Hello. Russ Meyer, 321 Park Vista. I represent the developers in this project. With an eye towards residential design and development and growing our city, we are proposing to redevelop the site at 5405 Roos into 6 homes. These homes will offer what buyers are looking for in the current market. 3-bedroom, 3-bath homes that are approximately 1,600 square feet. They will have unfinished basements with the potential for 4th bedroom and a 4th bathroom. They will all have 3-car garages. Our development seeks to provide much needed housing. Our current market has 800 homes for sale in the city of Lincoln. This year, at different times, we've been as low as 400 different residential properties to purchase. Our Lincoln market should have approximately 1,500 homes available to buy. So we're in need of some more housing in Lincoln. Our development at 56 and Roos is geared towards meeting this need. The team is keenly interested in and has experience providing housing that infills urban and suburban lots that have previously been underutilized and are in need of renewal. We're also encouraged this project do not require major additional infrastructure that new neighborhoods on the edge of the city would need. Our development is geared towards attainable housing with 6 single-family new construction priced between $275,000 and $325,000. As a side effect of this project, our development will grow the tax base from a single property that is currently valued at $172,000 to the 6 homes that will be valued at approximately $1.8 million. In preparation for this development, we hosted a 2-hour open house August 14th at Gear Library. We wanted our neighbors' feedback and to hear what they had to say. Our development team sent out 215 invitations to neighbors, fellow property owners, and the 3 overlapping neighborhood associations. And we had approximately 25 attendees to our meeting that provided good feedback. George Wesselhoff from the city planning also was one of the attenders of our meeting. Based on the feedback, the work we have done with the various departments in the city and the county, following the parameters that are set by the site itself, we have developed the plan you're seeing today. The feedback that we received included concerns about density, green space, trees, the views when driving down Roos Street and biking along the bike trail, parking and traffic, and rental properties. And to answer the question about rental properties is probably the easiest question to answer first. Our covenants and our HOA say that these properties need to be owner occupied, so there will be no rentals. The next slide, let's see. So these are the 6 lots that we have listed, or that we have displayed, 1 through 6, and a significant amount of land that's labeled as outlot. Second question that we received through our process was questions about density. Our 6 planned homes here fits within the neighborhood design standards of 5.8 houses per acre. This property is larger than 1 acre, and when we do the math, we can count that we have 6 properties that are allowable. We also talked about green space, questions of green space. There is 57% of our site and the design that we have is set up to be green space. 43% is concrete houses or driveways. Another question that came up were about views. Views from each home and whether you could see and be seen from inside and outside. As you can see, the views from each home see out, and you can see back into the properties. There's lots of windows on these, on the designs. Our landscape plan includes keeping existing trees as much as possible, planting new trees through the city, and berms, landscapes around the houses. Questions?
God bless you. Councilman Camp.
Yes, thank you very much. Just speaking about your trees there, so there are what, 3 existing trees, is that what you said?
Approximately, yep.
Okay, and how many new ones are you going to plant?
There's 1 required by the city between the sidewalk and the street, and then our plan is to plant others as needed to the south and add to what's already there.
Will the area of the green space permit that for good growth?
Yes. This is an image of the 2 trees that we want to keep from the street view. So that's from Rue Street, looking at the property that, and the house that is currently there.
Thank you.
Councilman Eskridge.
Yes, thanks for putting that picture up, because I was curious about, I think it looked like from your previous sketch, there are 2 of the buildings that do not have windows on one side. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. They have windows on every side. Let me show you where that would be. Here's a view. This view is looking south from Rue Street. And if we could superimpose these 2 together, see if you can see that. The properties facing each other, the new city tree, the existing trees, the driveway would be down the middle. If you look at the white areas are garages, the gray areas are the homes, and the home plans all have the windows towards the outside, so you will be able to see and be seen from the park and the trails, and you'll be able to see and to be seen out the windows from this Rue Street. The plan is the same. As you can see, it's a mirror image.
Okay.
So it does have views out every direction.
And do all the facilities have 3-car garages or just?
They all do.
Okay. Talk about that.
3-car garages are something that buyers in this price range are looking for to make everything fit on this site that we want to be able to offer. We elected to do tandem garages on the duplex properties and 3-car across the face garages on the single-family units.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Gaylord Baird.
Thanks.
You had another drawing similar to this with arrows. I just wanted to confirm what the arrows were. Windows, perhaps?
Window views.
Okay. Thank you. I know some of the initial feedback, you didn't have a lot of people at the Urban Design Committee meeting, but they had talked a little bit about, and it was again at the Planning Commission, just compatibility with the neighborhood. Are there any changes that you made after receiving that feedback that help with compatibility of neighborhood? Or if you could speak to that issue, that'd be great.
Yeah, we started out with a good design. You know, this neighborhood is a mixed bag of two-story and ranches and split levels. And we've provided design for two-story homes. The feedback that we received from neighborhood or neighbors were that they wanted, the views are very important to be able to see and to be seen. Another one of the questions that we had was, will you be able to see front porches? And driving down Roost Street, yes, you will be able to see front porches. Our view, let me get to that in just a moment. We wanted to provide wide front porches. And this view in 3 dimensions is if you were standing on Roost Street looking at the duplex. Here, standing here. So you will see front porches from Roost Street.
Okay. And I had one other question. Just one of the conditions of approval has to do with some stormwater, some corrections about stormwater. Have you been able to work through those, and do you have those today?
Yeah, I'm going to let Nate Burnett answer that question. It's a more technical question.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for this testifier? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would someone else like to speak? Mr. Burnett, I'm guessing you're Mr. Burnett.
Nate Burnett, Rig Engineering, 601 Old Cheney, Suite A. Throughout this process, working with both the architect and the neighborhood design committee as well as the developer, we've worked quite extensively with planning, public works, watershed management, met with Lower Platte, South NRD on site. And as far as the stormwater, we're very close to figuring out that solution. We've come to basically an understanding of what the city wants, and we're just trying to finalize that with the developer, looking at how we can make that solution the most cost effective for them. So one thing that I would again like to point out that hasn't been mentioned is that this site is a very unique site in that it has 3 public sanitary mains going through it. They have one here on the west side, one that's kind of going through in the middle, and then there's a trunk line, 36-inch, on the south side. And so working through with Public Works, planning, I think this is a really good plan with kind of some of the site constraints. I know there was some concerns at Planning Commission on how close these units might be on the west side, but again, we have a 10-foot sanitary easement, so the building can't be any closer than that 10 feet. So there'll be at least a 10-foot buffer between the west side and the property line, plus then the buffer on the neighboring properties to the west. So in terms of any questions on buffer between these, there'll be probably at least 15, 18 feet between units. Is there any other
questions from the council? Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak on this agenda item?
Hello. My name is Karen Griffin. I live at 5337 Roost Street, and the last name is spelled Griffin. And I first want to say thank you for listening to, this is in opposition to the development. It's not, and I want to make clear that I am not in opposition completely to the development, only to certain of the waivers. We live 2 doors down to this development in a similar pocket neighborhood. We love it. We think it is good to build pocket neighborhood like these into our area. So I'll just go into some of our comments that I'd like to bring up. As I said, we were opposed to the multiple waivers that were brought into this development. Ours was built with the same idea, without any waivers, to accommodate the trees and the green space in the area. Specifically, my husband, David Wood, and I live in the Roos Street development just to the west, as I said, and we love the access to the parks and the bike trails. And the proposed Roos Haven development, we don't believe that it fits in the character of the neighborhood and the open spaces because of the setbacks that are cut back and the other waivers that are made. So my comments to you today specifically are related to 2 aspects of the development that require waivers, and so my opposition is to the waivers that reduce the setbacks, the lot depths, and then a minimum lot area per family from 5,500 square feet to 3,300 square feet. I'm going to show a couple pictures of that in a minute to illustrate the green space that was maintained in our development. But I do want to also point out that we disagree with the waiver about the street frontage requirement. And so I'll show you a picture or 2 of that as well. So. I do want to point out can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to point out the proposed development, and then ours is just to the west. I just want to point that out so you know what we're talking about. Our development was built just a couple of years ago, and you walk out our front door. There are 4 trees that were maintained between the 2 developed homes, and ours are duplexes, both of them. And the 4 trees were maintained, as well as trees on either side of the units as well. If you look to the east, some of the trees that weren't mentioned in the development description, there are some trees that are just to the east of my neighbor's unit that will be lost when this development is made. And this is a picture of those trees. So back to our place again. When you walk into the development, you have an open feeling, and you can see all the way across to Pansing Park, which is one of the reasons we love our development.
Ms. Griffin,
Yes,
before you
sure.
move, that one is taken from your property looking
Yes.
away? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
it is, and that's our house, looking down at our
Oh,
house
we're
right
looking
here.
at your house?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
From my neighbor's houses behind the other development that I just showed you, just looking across at those trees. The other part of the waivers or the development that we're concerned about is the fact that on the backside, this is Antelope Creek, this is the bike path and Van Dorn. As you're walking east along Van Dorn, you can see that the other neighbors have trees in the back. Our development did maintain the trees in the back of our houses. And as you move east to the proposed development is the small trees in the back that will be lost. And we understand that they're trying to maintain the other trees, and we do appreciate that. The other point was the aspect of the front-facing vistas from the houses, the front-facing doorways. So this is the neighbors. On either side, they do have small porches like they're proposing, but the rest of the neighborhood, and I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to show you all the rest of the houses on the neighborhood face the front to the street. My neighbors, Leon Holmes and John Byers, all the neighbors, all of them face the front, and this is the back. All of two of my neighbors are going to follow after me with additional comments on this development, and we ask that you consider our request to deny the waivers that change the character of our neighborhood by removing this green space that is unique to this area and eliminating the need to make the houses face Roos Street. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Questions for this testifier? Mr. Councilman
Thank
Camp.
you, Ms. Griffin. Going through this, they were asking for 6 waivers, I believe. Could you identify, or actually more than that, could you identify the specific ones that would talk about the frontage and?
Yes, the specific waiver for the frontage is 26.23.140G. And my neighbors, Leanne and John, have some more details on the other 8, I think there are 7 waivers regarding setbacks.
Other questions from the council? Ms. Griffin, thank you very much.
I do have a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You showed a bunch of images of neighboring houses that face the street.
Uh-huh.
In the images provided in the staff report, it looked like the houses across the street faced east-west. Can you help us understand? Do you have the site layout again, the very first
Yeah.
image you showed? Can you help us understand the orientation of different homes on that?
I just walked down the street on Saturday morning when it was beautiful with my dog, as you saw in the picture. And we just took pictures all the way down. And so I showed you pictures of this, of basically all these houses on either side. And the two on either side, to the west and the east, do have porches that face to the side. And so they don't face to the front of the street, but the rest of them that I saw all do.
So those homes on Ruth Street that appear to be on 54th and 56th on the corner lots and 53rd, those actually have the frontages facing Roos, is that correct?
This one right here does
Okay.
face Roos. This one does. I believe, yeah, and this one too. I literally
Okay.
just walked down the
Yep.
street and took photos and looked where the houses were. I didn't look
It
in
was hard to
detail
tell
at
from the image, okay.
I didn't look in detail at the staff report, so my mistake. Thanks for the question.
Other questions from the council?
Staff questions? If
Would-
there
are
are
there
other
any
test-
other-
Okay.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to speak on this agenda item?
Hi, I'm Karen's neighbor. I'm Leanne Holmes. I live at 5339 Roos Street. Holmes is my last name. So yeah, I would, again, kind of like to reiterate what Karen said, that I'm not really actually opposing the development as much as the 8 waivers. 8 is a large number to me. It would seem that anytime that there are rules in place, when you think about changing rules, you wonder why would we make rules if it's okay to waive 8 of them for one development. Then looking at them individually, 4 of the waivers have to do with lot size, reducing lot depth, width, reduction of minimum lot area per family, and then most notably for I am the very next door neighbor, reducing internal setback to 0 feet. So, of course, we have understood that this will allow the lot to accommodate 6 homes rather than the 5. So without waivers, you can put 5 homes on the lot. So the primary objective here would seem to be economic, which, don't get me wrong, that's not necessarily a bad thing, unless it's the only thing, because what we're losing here is a tremendous amount of green space and trees. I think that there are probably certain areas of Lincoln that this probably is an okay trade-off. But this is a very unique lot in that it backs, as you could see with Karen's photos, it backs to the Billy Wolf Trail and to Antelope Park. And so it's very visible, not just to me, but to many, many people, all the people who use that trail. So I think that it takes a little bit more consideration because of that, because of where it's located and what that loss of green space means. Now, to me specifically, I was hearing the 10 feet from my lot line, but what that means is that next door to my backyard is not someone else's backyard, but actually a 2.5-story duplex right next to my backyard. So, yeah, that isn't the house that I bought. So for me personally, yeah, I do have to say that bothers me. The 2 additional waivers allow these homes to be built without frontage or entrances that face Roos Street. And I think that might be considered primarily aesthetic, and I think that that's what we're talking about when we think about pocket homes. or pocket neighborhoods, I mean. And pocket neighborhoods, I think, are very good and very useful depending on where they are. And I know specifically this developer has developed pocket neighborhoods that have been very well received, but mostly on very busy streets. And they make a lot of sense on very busy streets. If you put a pocket neighborhood on 9th Street, that makes a lot of sense. But Roos Street is not 9th Street. It's a very residential street. And the idea there is that you do want to refer to the rest of the neighborhood, not pocket it away. So, and more importantly, I think not only do you want to refer to the rest of the neighborhood in the front, but also the neighborhood in the back, which is the Billy Wolf Trail and Antelope Park. So a pocket neighborhood here doesn't quite make the sense that I think it would in a different neighborhood. The other waiver, I think, the stormwater facilities just didn't make any sense to me. Of course, I don't know much about this, but I was a little concerned when I saw that they didn't have to construct stormwater facilities, but hopefully that's something that's being looked at. The other one had to do with sanitary sewer systems. I did talk to the builder and the developer of our neighborhood, our little development, because I do live in an infilling neighborhood that does meet I always forget what it's called, the overall plan, the development plan for Lincoln. And again, you've heard that was built without waivers, but they talked about how deep the sewer is beneath this neighborhood. And if you do allow that waiver, they're really going to have a hard time reaching that sewer, which probably is beyond the scope of this meeting. But in summary, I do want you to understand that I do not disagree with this concept. I think that we do need more housing, and I do like the idea of infilling, but I think that our neighborhood shows us how it can be done, particularly in this neighborhood, and that's without waivers. So, thank you.
Any questions from the council? Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Councilman Camp.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. If you were the god of planning on this area, that's the goddess.
You can make me the goddess of planning, sure.
Looking at that and versus your homes and the Griffins and others, what do you think, numbers-wise, of homes could fit in here, and giving even some variance, what would be appropriate in your mind?
I think 5. I mean, I think that we have the template where we are, because I think that 5 would allow the appropriate green space, that then you could keep the trees in the green space. We have the template right next door, and that is going to also allow that forward-facing frontage. And for me, it's really more important that if you face front, you're open to the back. And when I bought my home, that was why I bought it. You walk in and see the glass open in the back, and you see the open to Billy Wolf Trail and the green. So that's what makes sense for this lot.
And 5 would allow frontage all on the front for all of them, or would they vary?
You know, I'm no architect, but I know that 6 doesn't. I mean, 4 definitely would. I think you could make 5 work. I did talk to the developer of our neighborhood, and he said that he was looking at it, thinking about it, and they were thinking of using the existing home that's there, and then 2 sets of duplexes, so that would have made 5 work in that lot.
And on your homes, and I didn't get a chance to drive out there, but are your garages, do you have the 3-car garages?
We do not.
2?
No, 2-car garages, yeah.
Yeah. And I will say the marketplace is asking for 3 cars, so, but,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the council? Councilwoman Raybould.
Ms. Holm, I don't know if you had a chance, what is the setback from each property line of the other homes?
The ones that were going to be built?
Yeah.
They want to change it to 0. I don't know what it is
The
now.
existing setback is?
I think it said from
The side yard is 10 feet
And-
on the west side.
Yeah, it's reducing internal setbacks to 0 feet. But
we'll get to that just during the rebuttal portion. Yeah. I think her answer would be, I'm not sure. Would that be fair to say?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm just reading it off their form, but that's internal setbacks. That may be, I mean, they have told me it's 10 feet from, my point is that it's my backyard to their home versus my backyard to another backyard.
Other questions from the council? Ms. Holmes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Would others like to speak on this agenda item? Yes. If others would like, we do have 2 microphones. If you'd like to speak, you can come to the second microphone and prepare.
Hi, I'm John Byers. I live at 5331 Roos. I am clearly not as bright as my neighbors. They're pretty amazing. But, you know, they're passionate, and we're all passionate about it. This, when you look at it, and I think it was brought out, we want predictability. I bought my property a year ago. I bought my property from a developer that followed all of the existing rules. There's 5 lots, 5 units that are on that acre lot. Karen showed you amazing pictures. It is a cool property. Now what we're looking at is saying, we need to make some money. So to make some money, we want to get some variances and some waivers. And we want 8 waivers. So we're not going for 1 or 2, we want 8 waivers. So now we get to talk about design because Dick and Ed didn't have to come here because they followed all the rules. But now we get to talk about design. Ours, I'm pretty prejudiced, are pretty cool. So all the pictures, it's a great place to live. Our views, the neighbors, we developed a really close-knit community and really fit in well. Now we're looking at bringing in a bunch of concrete and plastic that doesn't quite fit the entire neighborhood. We're showing that, oh, we're going to try and keep some trees and we're going to do it other, and we're going to color it in. But at the end of the day, we're trying to pack 6 units where 5 belong because that's the rule. So for us as a neighborhood, we're not opposed to it. Gosh, we're benefiting from a great site where our developer came in and put in 4 amazing townhomes. We are thrilled to death. And we don't know why it can't happen again. But right now we're going to stuff a lot in here, and we want predictability. Predictability is based on the building codes and the rules that exist. That was brought up. Little flexibility, but as an owner of property, I need the predictability that, oh, did what I buy, did what Leanne bought, did what Karen bought, are we getting the same thing? Because right now, what's there is a single-family dwelling. We know there's a possibility of more, but we also know that here's what the rules are. And this is what we should be able to look forward to. And this development's not doing that. They want you to give them 8 waivers. 8 waivers that we still don't know from what the Lower Platte sewer, there's a lot of things that I don't know about. But when I read through all the stuff from the Planning Commission, I'm like, I don't know what all that was. But I know that my developer didn't have to go through that. So we're asking just the same thing. Let's follow the rules. They're here for a purpose. We want some predictability. I mean, we want people to make money. We like it to be developed. But it's only fair. And the last thing brought up is we have to think, too, of the current residents in that neighborhood. In that really cute little red brick house is our neighbor Dee Edgar. She's not here today because she's 82, and she said she'd get a little wound up. And part of that is for her. You know, here's an 82-year-old woman who's lived in this neighborhood for, what, 50 years? She deserves some predictability. And right next to her is going to be this monstrous development that's going to come in. We know it's going to happen. She had to deal with it when our development came in. But I think we should have some compassion for her. Because there's a lot of people that are, you know, we're not the youngest people in the neighborhood, but there are people that are a little bit older than us that maybe we might want to think about how they're going to feel and how they're going to be impacted. And I don't think we're caring about that. We're caring about, hey, we're going to put $1.8 million on the tax rolls. Isn't that great? I mean, it's good. But the reality is we should have a little compassion and care about the people that are existing there that have been there for 50 years. So I appreciate your time. We're looking forward to it. You know, obviously we're opposed to how it's currently going in. And I appreciate my neighbors just really stepping up. So thank you very much.
Questions for this presenter? I'm sorry, I forgot your name, sir.
John Byers.
Mr. Byers, they said there was an open house, a meeting, a neighborhood, so yeah. Did you get a chance to attend that? And
I did.
Okay. How did you feel about that?
You know, it was an open house. It said, here's what we're going to do. Was there dialogue back and forth? There sure was. There's nothing has changed from that meeting.
That would be my follow-up question.
You know, when the questions were asked, here's what we think is important, this is what we do. You know, bottom line is decisions were made. We know that. But it's, here we're coming, and hopefully you're not too upset about it. And oh, by the way, we're going to ask for waivers, so we need everybody on our side.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? Would others like to speak on this agenda item? Councilwoman Gilbert, you wanted some staff, I think you had some
Staff questions. I'd actually like Mickey Esposito to come up just to talk about the waiver for sanitary sewer distance. I just had a quick question on that. And then if planning staff could come up and speak to the other waivers. We've had a lot of people point to them. If I'd like to get the perspective on what allowed you to recommend the waiver. And in this case, sanitary sewer distance. I'm not familiar with what that standard exists to achieve.
Mickey Esposito, Director of Transportation and Utilities, and actually I am going to have some help from Planning Department. I am not personally involved in this project, so okay. I only have the notes, so I think you probably want more detail. Do you want this?
No.
Okay. This is all I have.
No, that's good.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department. I have the fortunate that we get a lot of details in here, and so we had talked with Brian Kramer of the Public Works Sanitary Sewer Department, and it's kind of an unusual waiver, and basically it's a waiver down in here on Lot 3 that the sewer comes down the street and it stops right here, just 5 or 10 feet into Lot 3, and the developer's engineer can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but as Brian was basically explaining it, most developers, we require the sewer to go a good distance past Lot 3, because often the developer is laying out an entire subdivision, a year or so may pass, and then the builder buys the lot thinking the sewer is out in front of it, only to discover that it's just a few feet past it. In this case, the developer and the builder are one and the same, and they realized, oh, if they brought the sewer down just a little bit, they could connect up to it, and they didn't have to build all the rest of the sewer. And Public Works looked at that, and Brian Kramer's comment was, yeah, that makes sense to him. And so it's really just the length of the sewer, how far it goes in front of that lot. And because we're not trying to extend that sewer to anything to the south, because to the south is the creek, and there's not going to be any further units there, Public Works staff had recommended approval of it. I've worked for the city for 29 years, and I couldn't really think of that coming up before, but with a small lot subdivision like this, it made a lot of sense.
And I wouldn't doubt that Brian would try to be as flexible as possible to make this project, to get to yes in a way, so I would really trust his expertise in knowing what to do with respect to the sanitary sewer.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then I just wanted to have you walk us through the rest of the waiver requests, starting at the top.
Well, I tell you what, to make this easy, I'll take the ones that are not neighborhood design standards, and then Ed Zimmer will go over the ones, because Ed was the one who worked on the neighborhood design standards as well. So this particular development, I'll zoom back out. What we have is that we have Roos Street up at the top, and we have their street that's running down the middle with 3 units on one side and 3 units on the other. Except in this case, since we're only serving 6 smaller units here, we don't really need a street. So we agreed that really what would be functioning as a shared driveway was appropriate. Had this been a private roadway or a public street, had you had a little more width in here to do that, then some of the waivers may not have been necessary. Had you thought of this as another street, and this is a corner lot, even some of the neighborhood design standards may not have been necessary, because on a corner lot you could have decided an orientation of the units. But so you do have that private driveway that's going down the middle. So in terms of some of the other waivers, because the lots are oriented east-west rather than north-south to the street/driveway, the lots are not as deep as they would be if they had been oriented the other way. So that is the one of the waivers here is in terms of the lot depth, because the lots are only going to be 60 feet rather than our normal, which is 90 feet. The second one is the waiver which says you should have frontage on a public street or a private roadway. So these lots here in the back, while they're fronting and getting access like any other thing, they just technically are not on a street, they're on a driveway. And we have other circumstances like that in Lincoln as well. So it's not an unusual one to have a waiver of public street frontage. We often have kind of townhomes where everything around that townhome lot is owned by a common association, the driveways and everything. So, well, those lots technically don't front on a public street as well. So it's not an uncommon one. The third waiver was the lot area for 3,300 square feet, because the ones here in the middle are a little bit smaller lots. They are attached single-family lots, a very common waiver that we have in single-family attached types of subdivisions. The internal setback, just to make that clear, the internal setback are all the setbacks from one of these brand new lots to each other. So it's only lot 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. It does not waive the external setbacks. So the setbacks along Roos, along the south property line, along the west and the east, those all remain. And actually, typically a one side yard setback might have been 5 feet. Anybody could, anywhere in the city of Lincoln, in most of our zoning districts except R1, has a 5-foot side yard setback. They actually have a 10-foot setback on both sides. Part of that is because of utility easement there. So they'll be a little bit further away on the side. I should also note, and I'll grab an air photo here, that their lot frontage requirement, they're asking the lot frontage requirement to be waived. On the units that were, actually the 4 units that were next door that were approved through a final plat, these 2 lots here actually have 8 feet of frontage each on Roos Street, but they average overall a width of 40 feet. These 2 lots that were created are 42 feet. So the 2 lots that are in the back here actually only have 8 feet of frontage on a public street, but they are also sharing a driveway with the third of the 4 units that were platted here. This is Roos Place, and this is Roos Haven. Roos Place was done through our office in terms of just a straight final plat. Public Works had, when there's a waiver for the stormwater detention, when you are immediately adjacent to a creek, it is a very common waiver of watershed management to waive the detention. It's actually better in some of these circumstances that are immediately to the creek to have their runoff go immediately into the creek rather than being detained. And so there's not any stormwater detention required here, nor was there any stormwater detention required on the lots next door, nor would you typically see that anywhere else in Lincoln. I would also note in terms of the setback, while they have a 10-foot setback, it is true because of the 3 units, the last unit ends up being a little bit behind the unit to the west. But I would also note these brand new units here are all behind the other houses that were along Roos Street. When you have long, deep lots, it is by right that you can place the dwelling anywhere on that lot. So they took advantage of that, and so they are actually behind, behind the backyards of the other units in the street. It's just something that, when you have very deep lots, often happens. And I will note that we had heard from the Lower Platte South NRD, which was concerned about the speed of the runoff off the end of the driveway into the creek, that they have been working with the applicant on that and feel that they can come up with a suitable solution on that. So if this is approved by the City Council, from what we're hearing from the NRD, they felt comfortable with how that would be worked out.
I do have a question, though, still about the orientation, because while the others, I guess it's the southern 4 that are proposed, the the southern structures face the driveway. The ones that are actually adjacent to Roos Street in the proposal.
Oh, in the proposal.
Are being waived, that they don't actually face Roos Street. So I guess maybe that's a question for you, if that's a design standard.
Transition for Ed.
Ed, why? Why comfort with that, given the orientation of the other homes on Roos Street?
That was the item that brought Roos Haven to the Urban Design Committee, because there's language in the neighborhood design standards that when there's a CUP, you can look kind of internally to the CUP, and these do all choose to face internally. We felt that there was a choice made there that the ones on Roos could have oriented differently than the other four, and so that's why we addressed that issue to Urban Design Committee. I really should speak about probably the urban design review of the adjacent ones as well, in that we had to analyze first the deep pair. They were built first. This pair. And in the strict application of the standards, they do face Roos, but to no really streetscape effect. They're so deep back. But their garage doors also face Roos, which the standard on facade garages is that there should be 50% or more on the block if a new project is to use that. There's not 50% any pattern on Roos. It's a very diverse, rich, mixed. There are others that have garage doors directly on the facade, but not 50%. In this instance, saying that applying that standard strictly to those would make no sense. What was the effect of those garage doors that deep back from Roos? And so we accepted that design. Was that a waiver? It was a staff decision of reasonableness. I think it was a good one, but those garage doors were not positioned perfectly for neighborhood design standards. When we reviewed the pair directly on Roos, one of those right on the street has its garage doors. There's nowhere else to put them. I suppose there could have been some other kind of design, but they also have a storm sewer running out, or a sewer line running behind them. So they have a garage door on the street. That had to go to urban design and was waived by urban design, considering what they were trying to build, what space they had to build it on. So there was, in a sense, a waiver, not through the CUP process, but by urban design committee on that. The only item that we really saw in reviewing this that made reviewing the CUP that there might have been a choice was that last two units on Roos. There are windows there. Yes, you can see the front porches. You don't have a door directly oriented. But all the rest of those units, they were building them uniform to the other units they were building on this pocket neighborhood concept, and it was on that basis that urban design recommended, and Planning Commission accepted that judgment on the urban design, or on the neighborhood design standards. So each of them, we had to take through the same standards, and each of them tried to make a good judgment about them.
Additional questions? Councilman?
As you two gentlemen went through that, Mr. Hendricks, could you put up the aerial view you had of showed existing? Yeah, thank you. So as you look at, and I'm trying to compare a little bit here, I guess this would be the Griffin Homes on the left there, if I'm remembering right, versus this new empty lot that has the one home. Do you know what the area is of each grouping, like of the 5 homes there versus this proposed?
This one here, which was the 1.15 acres, I believe this one here, as the final plat came in, it was just for these 4 lots. If you look at the square area here, it's a little bit less than an acre. I think for these 5, which includes one existing house. When this final plat came in, there was one existing house here that was torn down to make way for the 4 houses.
Okay. You know, we've had concerns, I think some of the testifiers brought up the concept of slip-ins that we've experienced throughout the city. And of course, we've got, the mayor has a policy of trying to increase the urban density. And I suppose having more dwelling units, this would fall into play there. With such a deep lot, in fact, do you know how deep this, again, the width of it is, and the depth again, on the frontage and the depth?
It looks like it is approximately 300 feet deep. We can have the engineer, when they come up, verify that on the west side. It'd be a little bit longer on the east side. Looks like 328 feet on the east side.
And then the frontage on Roos Street, please.
It looks like it was approximately 150 feet. Maybe, sorry, 160 feet.
Okay. And we heard earlier, and maybe this is for the applicant or the builder here, the 57% of the green space, or 50% of the lot is green space, and 43% was consumed by concrete in the homes. It appears from the drawings that the homes and the concrete are in the more dense area, but and then you've got the open space toward the rear of the project.
Yeah, because of several sanitary sewer easement that comes through here and a channel easement, it'd be correct that more of the green space is on the southern end than internally. There is a sanitary sewer easement that runs through the middle of the site as well, and so there would be additional green space on top of it.
And any problems with having concrete over that sanitary easement? I'm reading that correctly.
No, I mean, there's two little parking stalls on either side. Otherwise, most of it is grass.
Grass,
okay. No, and we typically have driveways, other things that go across it. Of course, if we have to tear up that exact spot, it's at their risk to have the concrete there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? Councilwoman Gaylor Baird.
Going back to Councilman Camp's question about sort of the square footage of construction homes, concrete versus the open space, which of the waivers speaks to that?
We don't really have a specific open space requirement of developments. So there's not specifically a green space. One might say the smaller lot size is somewhat related to that. It's partly they have a smaller couple of lots in here, but then when you look at the overall amount, you have additional green space in other spots. So, but there's not a, you must have 50% green space kind of requirement.
But okay, so the lot size, can you just speak to why you were comfortable with reducing lot size? And maybe, I saw you had testified a bit to this on urban design, Ed, about the 6th. You can do 5 by right. The 6th is obviously what's creating a lot of the pressure on the site. Can you speak to your comfort level with that? And
when I think of a site 300 by 150, that says to me half a block in the original plat of Lincoln. The old part of the city is 300 by 300 blocks, 16-foot alley off back, and half a block in the old part of Lincoln has 6 house lots on it. So that's near south density, that's south bottoms density, except where there are tiny little houses, and maybe there are 12 on that half block. But that's I think a very familiar, not highly dense, not highly scatter site, familiar density in our city. So that's what 300 by 150 says to your historian, which is not an urban designer, but an historian.
okay. Do you have any comments on that,
I guess our comment was we felt it was appropriate, given that they were going to have a 10-foot setback on both the east and the west side. So it was a little bit bigger side yard setback than we would have normally seen. These were all, 2 of them are single-family detached, 2 of them are single-family attached. The units to the west are both single-family attached. And so we felt, given the overall development and given these 2 sanitary sewer lines that come through, it made a lot of sense that this was still going to be fitting in with the character of the area. Mostly as you drive by Ruth Street, what you'll see is the 2 units with a little view down, seeing that they're attached. So we felt particularly with the recommendation of the waiver on the neighborhood design standards, that it was an appropriate infill. And so even though the lots were a little smaller in some of the units here, it was still appropriate as part of the overall character of the neighborhood, which does have a mix of housing types.
Is it true, Steve? May I ask Steve a question? I think part of that reduced lot size may also be reflective of the number of easements running through this property that are, I think, assigned outlots typically in this.
Yes, some of the sanitary sewer easements will fall in the lots, but that was definitely a constraint.
So that it's the lots that someone is buying while the homeowner association will be taking care of the area as a whole, produces a little bit smaller individual footprints, but not overall. There's still an acre there, an acre plus there.
Other questions from the council? This is where I usually, thank you very much, gentlemen. This is where I usually ask for rebuttal and get it wrong. I'm going to ask for rebuttal. I get it right this time? Hi. Mr. Hunsaker, would you like to address some of the issues? Everybody else has got to speak that wanted to, right? Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. First of all, with respect to the density of this site, we meet the standard. This site is large enough for 6 units. We are not asking for any waiver of lot size for density purposes. In fact, the density of this site, the development that's proposed here, is within like 75 square feet per unit of lot area as to the 4 units that are next to us. I mean, we are virtually identical in terms of density with the project next door. Another thing that I think ought to be pointed out here is oftentimes people are concerned about traffic and parking and where are people going to park and how are they going to affect the streetscape on Ruth Street. There are 38 total parking spaces attributed to these 6 units. The 2 single families have 3-stall garages. Actually, all of them have 3-stall garages. The 2 duplexes have tandem 3 stalls, so they only have 2 stalls out in front. But each one of there are 14 stalls provided in driveways, and there's an additional 6 off-street parking stalls, so that if anybody has a game day gathering at their house, they're not going to be parking out on Ruth Street, and they're not going to be blocking anybody's driveway. They're going to be able to park within this project. There were waivers granted on that project next door. I hadn't gone back to look at every single item, but I can tell you that having 8 or 10 feet of frontage out on Ruth Street, that's a waiver. The depth of these lots compared to the width, I'm pretty sure exceeds 3-to-1. That's a waiver. These lots take access on a private drive just the same way our proposed lots will. This is a private driveway. We're showing a little wider area and we're showing a public access easement on it, but it's a private driveway just like the neighbors next door. I would suggest to you also that there was at least some consideration. I don't know what the ultimate decision here was, but there usually would be a setback, a side yard setback between these units and these units. So an internal waiver of the side yard setback to 0 had to have been granted here and here. And that's all we're asking for in terms of waiving those setbacks, is to be able to have units which abut one another on these lots where we have duplexes. That's the setback that's being waived. In fact, we have, as was pointed out by Steve, larger setbacks on all the other dimensions than are required. And if we were doing single families, if we just did 5 lots as a matter of right here, we could have smaller setbacks than we're showing. Now, with respect to the view issue that was raised, I want to just point out, if I can find that aerial again, I'll use this one. The photograph that was taken was from looking this way back to the park. It wasn't looking over here. It was looking back this direction. And so we're not, as far as affecting people's views, yeah, there's going to be a house next door now, whereas today there's a vacant piece of ground. But that's what happens sometimes when you buy a house next to a vacant piece of ground. Someone comes and develops it. It's not unusual. This is a project which absolutely was intended to be approved by your comprehensive plan. And if you actually mean what that plan says, and this isn't the mayor's plan, John, this is your plan. This is the council's plan. It was adopted by the council. And if you mean what it says, that you intend to have development occur within the existing city limits and to reduce, if possible, the amount of cornfields that we take up with additional land for development in the city, then these kinds of projects need to be approved. And they cannot be nitpicked because someone happens to live next door, and the flexibility that's required in order to meet the density goals of the comp plan have an impact. And this project is exactly within it's right in the middle of where lots and lots of development is within the city. As was pointed out, half a block in any piece of property you look at between here and Highway 2 is going to have about 6 dwelling units on it. And that's about 1 acre. And that's exactly what we have here. So we're a little over 1 acre. We meet the design, we meet the criteria, the density computations, and the only reason we're asking for these waivers is this parcel is chopped up by sewer easements so badly that we have to configure the placement of these units around those easements rather than what we could do if it was just a nice, clean, easement-free parcel. I'll try to answer any other questions you have.
Councilwoman Raybold.
So Mark, you're saying that because of the easements, you cannot go with the configuration of the adjacent lot where they have used 5 homes?
The adjacent had 4. And yeah, because of the easements, they're kind of going cattywampus through the site. And then as well as on the west side, there's a 10-foot easement. And actually, as part of this project, there's actually not easements on some of these sewers on the property. As part of the project that's coming forward, the developers are granting the city easements to actually maintain the sewer main. So as part of our project, we've been working with the city to say, how much width do you need to maintain your line, even though it's on their property? So currently, those easements on 2 of the 3 sanitary lines are not there. And so we've been working with Brian Kramer to create those easements. So,
rather than make the city dig them up, of course.
Other questions? Mr. Hunsinger, some of the questions, concerns by some of the other testifiers were about the green space and the aesthetic. The developer did mention that he would try to keep as many trees as possible. Have you spoke with the neighbors about maybe doing something additional to maintain the aesthetic?
I have not. I've been kind of late to this process. But every homeowner and every developer does some amount of landscaping when they build projects like this. I'm sure that there would be some willingness to discuss how we landscape this, but we are clearly going to lose a little bit of landscaping that's there. We're saving the major trees that are out front and some that are in the back, but there will be additional landscaping that goes with all of these when they're constructed.
Yeah, there is significant green space on the, we have, like we were saying, there's 57% on the east side from the south end of the property to where the first lot is. We have, on the south side, we have 100 feet of open area on the east side. Then on the west side, where it gets pinched off there a little bit, that's 40 feet plus, as then Antelope Creek comes to the south and that increases to 100 feet. So on that south side, that view from the trail, there's going to be significant open space there.
That parcel is right here. The park is down here. The adjoining properties are here. The south end of our actual development is here, and this outlot comes on down to the park. So there will be substantial open space. There will be a view corridor to the southeast as well, from the rear yards of those properties to the west.
Other questions from the council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That ends our public hearing resolutions, I think, and we're ready to go into the voting session.
So we just have one item to vote on under public hearing resolutions. Special permit 18032, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Camp and a second by Councilman Christensen. Discussion of the motion? Hearing none, I'm sorry, Councilman Camp.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was
Councilman Eskridge.
very appreciative of the testimony by all parties here. And it's always difficult in a situation like this where you've got the open space and changes occur. I think those who are questioning some of the waivers understand that. I think with the nature of the area and all, I'm persuaded that the project does have its merits, but I do appreciate too the concerns of the residents nearby. So I will support this.
Other comments about the motion? Seeing no others, Teresa, would you call the roll, please?
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then, ordinance's third reading. 7A, change of zone 05002B, application of James B. White on behalf of ProFit Performance Club Fitting LLC to amend the Links at Lincoln planned unit development to allow the sale of alcohol for consumption on premises as an accessory use to the golf course and clubhouse at 375 Fletcher Avenue, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Raybold, second by Councilman Eskridge. Discussion? And we vote on this one now?
Yes.
Yes. Seeing no I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You go.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7B is change of zone 08041A, application of Kelly Jacob for a change of zone, expanding the Pine Woods planned unit development, boundary limits from AGR agricultural to R3 residential PUD on approximately 3.03 acres with adjustments to the zoning and subdivision regulations on property generally located at 6909 Pine Lake Road, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Raybold, second by Councilman Eskridge. Discussion? Long pause. Hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge? Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Our resolutions on first reading are items 8A through L. Ordinances first reading are items 9A and B. Our pending list are items 11A through D. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time, since it is an open microphone session.
Are there people in the audience that would like to speak to the council as part of open microphone? I'm kind of stalling to give you time to get here. And you know it'll be 5 minutes with a 1 minute warning.
Okay, more than I need, thanks. My name is Amanda Gailey. I'm a longtime resident of Lincoln and also president of Nebraskans Against Gun Violence. And I'm here today along with a couple of other people to ask, or I'm sorry, we're not allowed to ask questions, I think, but to express our concern that we seem to have stalled out in any kind of forward motion on a safe storage ordinance that would require gun owners in Lincoln to keep their firearms locked up when not in use. A safe storage ordinance is a basic minimal requirement that those who choose to introduce a dangerous product into our community should take steps to reduce the risk of that product. It's a concept we apply to many, many other dangerous things in our communities. A safe storage ordinance would reduce gun thefts, suicides, which comprise about 2 out of 3 gun deaths and go grossly unpublicized in local media and national media, and also mass shootings like the Von Mars shooting and the Millard South shooting, both of which occurred when a person who had no business accessing a firearm was able to simply do so by getting an unsecured firearm out of a home. I speculate that inertia on this issue here locally is largely due to fear of the firearms lobby and political consequences for pushing on this ordinance. But as you know, good government builds policy based on facts and based on what is best for our community. The status quo of putting armed police in schools and requiring our students to undertake duck and cover drills, along with about 40,000 gun deaths per year and 100,000 more injuries in this country, is not good enough for our community. It's not a good enough future for the United States. A safe storage ordinance may be controversial. If it is controversial, that's only because of decades of allowing the firearms industry to poison public opinion about what makes good policy and what doesn't, and allowing them an undue influence in the construction of our public policy that few other industries allow harmful industries to have. A safe storage ordinance is not public policy that would be controversial in any of our peer nations. This summer, I was fortunate enough to take a trip to France, and while I was there, I was chatting with a French citizen who told me he had been to the United States once, and he had a moment when he had a hard time recalling the name of a city he had driven into from DC, but he said, you know, it's the one where they just had a bunch of their journalists mowed down in a mass shooting. That's how people in other countries know us, is by our violence. That's not how I want other countries to know the United States. It's not how I want other communities to know my community. He said, you know, Europe has its problems for sure, but we really cannot understand why America won't fix its gun problem. I don't understand it either. Fixing the gun problem starts with U7. It starts in this community. It starts with asking people who elect to purchase a product designed to kill people to take basic precautions to keep that product away from people who will use it to kill our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, please.
Hi, my name is Melody Vaquero, and I serve as Vice President of Nebraskans Against Gun Violence. And several weeks ago, there were many people that came before you to discuss a safe storage ordinance, and there were around 50. People talked about their hopes, their concerns, and we want to have a dialogue in Lincoln about gun violence. And over 1,000 people took to the streets in March asking for change. There's a picture from the March for Our Lives rally where over 1,000 people took to the streets right here in Lincoln, Nebraska. In the weeks that have passed, I haven't seen a public response from City Council. And I'd like to make clear why you, the City Council, is the correct body to take action. We have a problem. Children of all ages are getting their hands on guns and killing themselves and others. They're bringing them into our schools. Police are facing increased danger from stolen guns. It's a problem with a really easy solution: locking up guns. As a small body of government that is closest to the people you represent, it makes sense for you to show leadership. As a body of government with a population asking you for action, it makes sense for you to show leadership. Other city councils around Nebraska are watching us right now, waiting to see what you will do. When you bring an ordinance forward and we see fewer bullets in the bodies of our children and fewer guns in our schools, other cities will follow your lead. Maybe the state will take action and follow your lead, but maybe not. It's not the state's job to govern the city of Lincoln. It's your job. And I'm here holding you accountable to that sacred duty. We're all worried about gun violence. We all want the children in this community to come home safe from school every single day. We don't want guns in the schools. We don't want young children accidentally shooting themselves or others in homes or in homes where they play. We don't want teenagers taking their own lives. Here are a few ways that an ordinance will proactively save a life. Good people do their best to follow the law. People who aren't locking up their guns will start to do so once it becomes the law, and this will save lives. LPS refuses to send anything home about gun storage. Once you pass an ordinance, they will be able to start sending that type of information home. They'll be able to say, like car seats and bike helmets, gun storage is the law. When people are better educated, they make better choices, and this will save lives. Parents who worry about sending children to court-ordered visitation will have recourse if the other parent isn't responsibly storing guns. This will save lives, or in the worst case, will give a grieving parent justice in court. Child welfare services and police can take action when they work with a family with unlocked guns. This may have saved the life of a 4-year-old boy in Hastings whose 9-year-old brother was in crisis. The police, social worker, and the school told the family to remove guns from the home and lock up knives due to crisis in the home. Without a law, nobody could actually protect the boys. The 9-year-old shot and killed his 4-year-old brother with one of the 6 guns police found in the home. None of them were locked up. Had agencies working with the family had a local ordinance, they would have been able to remove the children or remove the guns, whatever needed to happen. I'm asking you to tune out what political party bosses are talking about. Tune out national organizations. Please don't worry how this is going to play out in November or in May. The community has come to you, people who live in Lincoln, people who work in Lincoln and raise our families in Lincoln. Kids have died in Lincoln from a totally preventable situation. And you can save the lives of children who will die if you take no action and who are dying right now. You have been given the authority and, more importantly, the responsibility to take action. I would like to know what you need from the community to move forward with an ordinance. I'm here to work with you, but you have got to take a step forward in order for all of us to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, please.
My name is Camille Yakino. I am an 8th grade student at Leffler Middle School. I'm here today to ask the City Council to pass a safe storage ordinance. Every year in the U.S., tens of thousands of people are killed because guns are in the hands of the wrong people. A safe storage ordinance would help prevent this and make Lincoln a safer city. Many people who oppose an ordinance like this complain that it unfairly impacts responsible gun owners. In reality, responsible gun owners already lock up their guns. If you do not lock up your guns, you aren't a responsible gun owner. I believe that human lives are more important than the constant, unquestioned convenience of those who choose to own machines designed to kill. I have a right to live and not be shot. I have a right to spend my class time learning, not hiding under my desk during a lockdown drill, while adults consistently take no real action to address the root of the problem. These rights are more important than anybody's non-existent right to leave a dangerous loaded weapon lying around to be stolen. Please consider this important issue, as it is a life and death problem for Lincoln citizens.
Thank you. Next testifier, please.
Hi, my name is April Jorgensen. I also visited at a previous city council meeting talking about my experience as an educator in schools and what that's like, and also about a tragedy within our own family. I just wanted to reiterate again that we hope you'll bring something forward, that we feel like you are the right body to do this, that we think it's time. And by we, I just mean citizens of Lincoln are ready for adults to be asked to do something. Right now, the entire onus of responsibility is on children to say something, to do something, to practice, to duck and cover, and the adults are not being asked to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Would others like to speak before the city council during the open mic portion? Councilman Kim.
Normally we don't say a lot at these open mic sessions, but I think with this particular issue and the number of people that have now appeared for a second open mic meeting, I'd like to make a couple of statements. And this is just reflection from me and so forth, but I appreciate the concern that many of you today, as well as the past meeting, I think we had 50 at the prior meeting, testify. And I understand your concern for children and so forth. There are some very intangible words used in your testimony about you suspect that political organizations are after us, 2 organizations or something. I'm not sure who you're talking about. No one has approached me saying I shouldn't support safe storage. I heard the second last speaker say responsible people lock up their weapons. I think that's true. I think that dictates that we need to do more education. As far as legislation, though, you have a real difficult situation on enforcement. Are we going to get into a police state where we suddenly have our police officers, have Investigator Hoffer go into homes and start saying, gee, do you have your guns locked up? Do we search it? I think we need to be real careful in situations like that, because you do have a potential enforcement situation. I think this is an area, whether it be guns, whether it be cars, or the trucks in Paris, France that mowed down dozens of people. There are weapons, so to speak, or objects that can be used in a fatal situation. None of us wants that. We're very fortunate here in Lincoln to have a very low crime rate. We strive very hard with our police officers and county and other officials to have liaisons among them to protect our citizens. There are criminal elements, unfortunately, in this world, and I think from my travels, I see them existing everywhere. I just returned from Cuba. I do not want to have the police monitoring like they do the Cuban people and keep them in a life of fear. So I appreciate your concern. I share concerns. I want it to be safe for my family, my children, my grandchildren. But saying that, coming here in force is difficult. You're asking us to say, gee, we have to have legislation on the table to have a productive conversation. I don't think that's the case. I think you can generate that through community organizations and so forth. But just putting a law on the books, I don't think is going to solve the situation that you say exists. Again, just unfortunately, there are many means through which deaths occur other than natural causes. And, I agree we want to have a good community, but the pressure you're suggesting and how you're approaching us, I think you can be most productive in working through, write your letters to editors, do your opinion editorials. We have Nancy Hicks of the Journal-Star here at all of our meetings. Visit with your school representatives. One of you mentioned that the LPS doesn't send home notes about safe gun storage or something. I think doing that, and again, I go back to the comment one of you made about responsible citizens do have safe storage. Let's encourage that. Criminals are not going to do that. The criminal element is not going to do that, unfortunately. We heard yesterday how the governor's son was attacked or approached last night in Omaha in a very respectable neighborhood for his iPhone. There are situations that are very unfortunate. We want to strive to protect those, but I think we need to all respect the manner in which we can effectively do that. And so I would just ask you to think about that and not just keep inundating us saying we have to do something. I think we are doing something by listening to you, conversing among ourselves. And I don't know, again, I'm just speaking for myself, I do not intend to bring legislation on this matter forward. I would sure support educational efforts. One of my colleagues may be so inclined, and that would be up to her or him. But I just want to make a couple of comments because I sense that you are so strong on this issue that you might keep coming at us, and I don't know that that can be so productive. I mean, that you're getting into the border, or are we going to have just small organizations dictate how we should live and legislate for our community? I just don't think that's appropriate. I don't want to see us fall into the mob appeal at the federal level. That's just not necessary. So, again, I appreciate your concern, your passion on this issue. Let's work together to create more ways of a better environment in Lincoln. So, thank you.
I move adjournment.
We have a motion by Councilman Christensen, second by Councilwoman Lamb. Would you call the roll, please?
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
We are adjourned.